Good morning. It's Wednesday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm just making sure that things are working and that the music's not playing because we still haven't gotten around to resolving, or we haven't gotten word, I should say, that the issue has been resolved. I think I've taken care of anything that might be there. So I'm not sure what's showing up on the stream when I'm looking at my monitor, which is like there, which the main purpose of which is to tell me whether I'm on camera or not down here on the work area. Okay. And, sometimes I'm not. And then I look up and go, oh, well, I probably should be on camera. There's like dark and light lines scrolling from top to bottom. So I don't know if that's just the monitor or the camera or something along the line. But if you're seeing it too, I apologize for the quality of the video. And if you're not seeing it, well, then that's good. I didn't change the thing that what we're painting is going to be. Hi, who? Yes, I'll do a flip as soon as I clear off this area here so that I have a place to do flipping on. Because I will be doing unmasking and assembling and more taping today. Probably be doing that on Friday and next Monday as well. So I'll show you what I've got in these boxes all over the place. I painted these. I painted these yesterday. This needed to be resprayed because it wasn't done right the first time. And this is the inside of the service module. Top. It's hinged here. That hinge is not an official Apollo part. That's an official model part that was put in there so that it can be hinged. So I painted this, and I hope it comes out okay. I'll find out when I unmask it whether I need to be doing any touch-up on it or not. And if this part is okay, well, getting all sorts of flip demands here. If this part turns out to be okay, then I will install these little bits here. These little bits of tanks there. And I'm going to have to decide, see this detail here? It's like some sort of control panel that is just painted gold. And I need to decide whether I'm going to try to highlight any of this by making it black or green or red or something. I'm not sure. I'd like it to look a little more interesting than it is, but I also don't want to mess it up, because if it's messed up, then it's a mess. So I'll have to think about that. The cover of the box doesn't have any highlighting on there that I know of. So I'm going to check the box before I go too terribly far on this. The masking part is that if these parts turned out okay, then I need to mask this side so that I can paint these sides the white color, which is the exterior color of the Apollo stack. In here I've got an assembled bit. I put this together on Wednesday. This is done. I thought I could get away not putting an adhesive on this tank, but you can see that it doesn't stick. So I'm going to stick some adhesive in this little flange. Can you see it there, back there, and here? And I put some adhesive on there, and then reinstall this, and hopefully it will stick and not just keep flopping around. So this would have been done other than it not holding by friction. So I guess I can put this also in this tray, but you can see that, that this came out actually pretty well. And this will go on to then. This box out of the way, put it, I don't know where, in the way somewhere else. There, it's on the floor. Use this place to do some flipping. What have I got in this box? I think I've got yet more parts in here. Yep. These are the little bits, the tiny little bits that get installed inside the gold painted door. This gets attached to this somehow, and that and this get attached there. And then in here are all the parts for the 4 attitude control sections. So I'll probably be working on this also today. Parts are starting to come together and beginning to look like something. Let's do a flip. I can do a flip with this big thing here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not flipping very well, is it? It's kind of, this is, yeah, anyway, enough of that. So just a whole bunch of stuff to do in no particular order. So I think maybe, just to get this out of the way and done, I think I'm going to go ahead and put some model cement in the back here and and then reinstall this. It has to go in a very particular direction because there are little flaws that I couldn't totally eliminate when I put it together. I think I'm just going to try to use this. This is a little bit risky. If the stuff drips on a place where I'm not trying to put it, it could be a problem. But it gives the best chance of this thing adhering properly. Let's try to do this extremely cautiously. Yeah, it falls over that way because that's the part that's installed and that's heavier than the rest of it. Okay, now I need to orient this correctly because once it's put in there and it touches the adhesive, it cannot move again. Okay. Looks all right. Hopefully it made contact and it will stick. We'll find out a little bit later. Looks like assembled. And then this door goes on here like this. And it opens up. And then there's the other detail stuff there. The rest of this, the back of this gets covered mostly with this. And then with another small part. I do believe those get cemented on, and I will check the instructions to make sure. Let's see. Yeah, cement. Do cement 52 and 53, which are these things that go in the back. Don't cement the thing with the hinge. Okay, well, that's really stupid. The thing with the hinge needs to go on before cementing 52 to it, because if you cement this on, then you can't get the hinges in. Just sometimes they're just not very good at directions. Okay, this is trash. And I'm going to put a paper towel down on the cardboard here. Just, you can see a little better, but also the cardboard can sometimes rub the paint off. Well, I can't get anywhere with this until I take this tape off, right? I have to unmask this because this entire side, the other side here, needs to be painted white. And it looks like there's a little touching up that needs to be done there. Because the line of white is just right there. So here, I need to get some of that. And here too, there's a flaw there. I need to get some of that gray-green paint and fix that. And while I'm at it, I'm going to check the other one as well, which is somewhere, maybe in that box. Oh, yeah. See what I mean about being on camera or not? That was not being on camera. So this line comes out okay because it's just like a straight edge. This other one has a bevel on it, and the bevel is there because the command module heat shield, which is kind of curved, fits on there. So this whole thing gets painted. It's a pearl white. It's a little bit glossy. Actually, the white primer looks pretty decent, but I like the way the glossy paint kind of looks. On the Gape Tower, I'll show it to you in a minute. And since that's already painted this color, the glossy, sort of glossy white, just the whole thing now needs to be painted that way, whether it looks good or not. So I need to do some little touching up on there with the gray-green paint. Since it's a spray paint and I don't want to start all over, I just spray a little bit of it into a container and then use a brush and brush it on. And it's not very good brushing paint, but it at least covers it so that there's a color there. This is the other part. So this part will end up going here. And there will be a gap. And I decided I need to just live with it. I just need to live with the gap. Okay, so I did a little touching up there. Yeah, it's not perfect, so I might retouch the retouch. So that's one thing to do. So far today, I have done some things. I have put an adhesive on this tank so it doesn't fall out anymore. It's not positioned right. There we go. Because it sticks somewhere. Forward a little bit. No place to grab it. Am I going to have to do the string trick thing like I did with the submarine? I'm hoping not. Okay, that's where it should be. So it's not falling out. So I'll just say that this is now done. And I think it came out okay. Top detail, the conduits, including the tiny little bitty wires here and here, those are done. And then at the bottom, all sorts of piping. And there's a shield that goes on here that holds the rocket exhaust nozzle that I'll be working on a little bit later. Well, let's unmask this and see how it turned out. Right? To check it out at some point. That line came out okay. This edge is going to get painted white. Let's just say that the masking is definitely sticking. Came okay so far. Needs to be some sort of removing masking tape monologue that I could use. Just yeah, this edge here, this edge right along here is going to have to be painted white. There'll be some very, very careful masking along the hinge here. That edge has come along okay. Yeah, what was printed on here, I'm using the back side of a picture of a spotted octopus that I painted a while ago. I didn't know how to paint it, so the internet teaches you everything, right? So I went on the internet and got a picture and printed it out and tried to paint it to look like that. Maybe I'll show it to you. I'll do that when I get the tape off of my fingers. It almost feels like it takes longer to take this off than it was to put it on. That's not the case. It took quite a bit longer to put it on, but that was more interesting. Actually, no. Well, I can say it was more interesting, but being more interesting than not interesting at all is still not interesting. But if I didn't do this all during the stream, then it would be almost like it was edited. And there is no editing that goes on in this at all. Okay, there. That's unfortunate. Up here, it didn't get sprayed, so that's part of. I have to do some touching up on there. It wouldn't ordinarily be a problem, like if it were on here. It wouldn't, because there's a bulkhead that goes on there. Okay, one of these bulkheads. But here, since the door opens, even though it's on the bottom, that will show as being unfinished. The gold is quite gold, though. I mean, that part That part is done. So I've got some gray-green touching up to do. Let me get this sticky junk out of the way so it doesn't stick on things. Because it is sticking on things. So let me grab a brush. I'm going to grab a brush that has a decent point, but if it doesn't clean up, I'm not going to be too upset about it. I put the brushes very carefully away over there where I could try to reach them. This one might work. These two. It's a fairly large surface here that needs to be painted, so I might use this larger brush and just try to be as careful with it as I can. So maybe I'll just do that next. Still haven't decided whether to try to put some color on these bits. I was going to look at the box top, wasn't I? Tell you what, I'm going to go off camera for just a little bit, and I'm going to look at the box top and maybe bring the box top over. So I just need to move a few things. Oh, I'll do this. Shown this off in a while. This is the escape tower. Mm-hmm. I think it came out okay. So just to compare, you can see there's the glossier white compared to the flat white of the primer, and I just think the glossier white looks good, even if it's not historically accurate. I mean, this is just a model. It's obviously a model because it's got seams in it and places where things didn't match up perfectly and all sorts of stuff like that. You know, just the surfaces aren't perfectly smooth, but I like the pearlescent. It just looks better as a display. So just to show you that something is done, I've got it on the sticky tack stuff here because this will eventually sit on top of the command module, which sits on top of this. That'll be the last thing I do. So I wanted to show that because it's done. And it's sitting here collecting dust in the meantime. Really big, but there you can see the escape module like I did. It almost looks like that, right? And then this is the service module I'm working on now, and the command module, and underneath this there is a hangar for the lunar excursion module, which is pretty cool. I'm interested in is nowhere to be seen. Oh, here. Yeah. Here. See how this opens up in the service module. This is the interior that I did. This is the detail that I painted that looks pretty much like that. I think that came out okay, but I can't see enough. I can see where the tanks are attached, but I can't see if they painted in detail on the on this panel. No. Oh, this is an important thing here. It's called a high gain antenna. There you can see it. It's on the bottom of the service module. It folds flat and then folds out. And it could go either way, right? Okay, well, that Okay, this becomes confusing now. Okay, let me show you what I just knocked it. It's all have room to do this. In this picture, where it's folded flat, it's folded down, the antenna parts, it's just rounded on the other side, the antenna parts are facing outward. Okay? Which means that when you fold it out, no, that's right, facing up. So if they face out, so then they open up, and when you look at it from the top, it facing up. And it's good for me to know. And it looks here, see that there? It looks like theirs broke off in the same place mine did, but my repair is better. But yeah, it looks like their piece snapped right there. You can even see it here. Even in this picture, you can see where they repaired it in exactly the same place mine broke, and it fell the same way. Maybe it was designed as a broken part. I'm just putting it there. That was interesting to see that, because I was really in. Hi, new follow. Thank you. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate that. And I hope that you are enjoying the very slow progress on this. Although on Wednesday, parts got assembled, and the interior of the service module is now finished. And I'm working on the exterior panels now, which includes this one, where I will be installing some tiny little tanks. But first, there's always a but first, I need to do some paint repair. On the bottom here, it didn't get adequately sprayed, and there's a problem there and there, where the tape on this beveled edge masked it too much. And there's a little bit. This is where I did some touch up on Wednesday, and you can see that it's a little bit less even than the spray paint, but I'm not. This is where I start doing B work instead of A work. What I should do is remask this whole thing and then just spray that little bit. But I'm not going to, because it would just go on forever. So when you look at this, you might say, really, did they really plate the entire interior like this with gold? And it's true that that the interior of this was gold. A good deal of the exterior of the lunar excursion module was gold as well. Need particulates all over the place now. What I did is I just sprayed some of that paint into this little container, and hopefully it's very thin, but if I'm careful with the brushing, it will color. We'll put enough color on the place where there isn't color. Which is what the point is of this. That, and then here right up along this edge. This edge is pretty important because it's highly visible because the service module comes off of it. The command module sits on the top of this. And when you remove it, because the parts all come apart, that will show geeling very quickly, which is good and bad. It looks a lot better than it did. That's for sure. Okay. I'll let that dry. If I need to do more a little bit later, I will, but it looks pretty decent. I think I did an okay job of fixing the obvious flaw. So it's still, now it's a not very obvious flaw. Good thing the flaw isn't quite as obvious as it was. All right, now I need to clean this brush. We're using the denatured isopropyl. It's not denatured really, it's just isopropyl alcohol. Letting things pile up really messily all over the place here. It's going to be a many side A. Let's see. Spent a good deal of time talking about Gilligan's Island. For some reason, it came up while I was talking with my brother yesterday. I have no idea why he was looking into Gilligan's Island history. I don't know, one of those cosmic coincidences. It's like, who would be looking into Gilligan's Island history at all, ever? Much less the two of us at the same time. So yeah, as I was talking about how the theme song changed after the first season, apparently there were very significant changes in the opening and closing of the show besides just the theme song. You know, the theme song, which said "and the rest," you know, and later became the Professor and Marianne. Marianne then becoming the only one of two named characters in the theme song, Gilligan and Marianne. So what did I learn from my brother? And this may or may not be true. I don't know, but you know, he said it was, so I have no reason to doubt him, and I don't really feel like looking it up myself. You can do a fact check on Gilligan's Island historic trivia. So apparently, not just the theme song changed to give credit to the Professor and Marianne, but the primary advocate for the change was in fact Gilligan, Bob Denver, who said, "No, it's really not fair that these two should get second billing." And in fact, they did get literally, I should say that they did get second billing. The other characters were all shown in the opening credits, and the Professor and Marianne didn't get any credit until the closing credits. So that changed, and they were now featured in the opening as well. But apparently, that wasn't the only change. Another change was that the first episode the End the Rest episode, okay, was done in black and white, and subsequent ones were done in color. And this one definitely needs verification. My brother said that the location of Gilligan's Island changed. That if one watches the opening credits from the first season, that the beach and the overhead shot of the island are different in the subsequent seasons. That may be the case. So they, not only changed the theme song, but they apparently took the opportunity to change quite a lot of other things, like doing it in color, for one, but also reshooting the island so that the island was different. Oh, okay. Well, there's some more touch-up I didn't see that needed to be touched up. I have to spray some more of this toxic material here. Yeah, I'm not going to use the brush I just cleaned. I'm going to get another one messy instead. Anyway, yeah, so there's some it's all accurate or not, but that's what I was told, is that the significant changes happened after the first season, showing up mainly in the credits. And not the credits, but the opening and closing sequences. The other thing that's probably obvious to everybody is that the primary building material on Gilligan's Island was, of course, bamboo, right? Everything from the huts to the mugs that they used was made out of bamboo. But whenever they ran around on the island, hi, Ole, thanks for joining in. I will be showing to you some things that have been done. Yeah, the gold came out well. After going through 3 different gold colors of spray paint and 2 combinations of them, I ended up just using this, which does not match the gold foil extremely well, but it's better than the other options. So, I was just doing some gray-green touch-up on these parts. Very carefully putting this away, carefully enough anyway. Yeah, so this is the door that goes here. And when this thing is assembled, it's together. There we go. It looks like this. This will get painted that nice white, kind of pearly white, as will the other 3 panels, the other 2 panels. But then this opens up. Drum roll, da 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 da. Revealing, ta-da, the detailed interior of the service module. And Yeah, there it is. That's how it will work. And the top and the bottom bulkheads, I think the detail came out really pretty well. So what happens here? What happens next is that these little tanks, these little bits here, get put into these spots here. And I'm still debating this, although maybe you can give some advice here. So there's those tanks go there. I'll just show you one, for example, this, there, yeah, tiny little pieces, right? I think this one goes down here. So these are going to go, well, I'll just lay it down so you can kind of see it. It's supposed to go in there and hold. Got a nice colored bracket. So these tanks go here, here, and here. Is this panel here, whether or not I should take a chance and with a fine tipped felt point pen, and because I don't want to put paint on it, that would be too difficult to control probably, is I'm thinking of like making these black, okay, and maybe making these buttons up here green, just so that they're not just, so it looks like there's something attached to a gold background as opposed to gold stuff just attached. And I looked at the box top, you know, where the Master Modelers one was photographed, and I can't see whether or not those were detailed. And I just feel like they need to be. I'm thinking these little bits here, those are almost like fasteners, probably not, but I'm thinking up here, these things and these things and these things here. Really dark gray. If I were using a brush, if I were brushing it on, I would do that. If I felt more confident in my painting, and I'm just not, despite the fact, I mean, look at, I'm very proud of this, the tiny little detail of the conduits here, not just these, but these little bitty ones. Those came out okay. But if I mess this up, it'll be really hard to touch it up with the gold again. No, can't decide. The rest of this is coming out okay. So when I think I'm going to try it, I'm going to see. I'm just going to give it a go. And I am going to use the pens, the felt tip pens, rather than the paint. I used this technique on the ladders and some of the detail in the submarine, and it turned out okay. So let's just see. Let's see if I can do this without ruining what I've already done. Ink on them. Head magnifiers. It's not focusing well for me today. What is wrong? Everything's coming out like double. Okay. It's not much in terms of color, but I think you can see that it's different. So I think that just that little bit is working. But the head magnifiers. Well, thanks. Oh, of course, you've got so many things to do, but thanks for stopping in. I really appreciate the ongoing support. Have a safe drive. I'm going to take these off and just look at it now. And there's not much on there. There's a spot, tiny little spot. I think we can even see it. I think I need to do something about that. Yeah, I hate to do this, but sometimes things just need to be done. These are like dots, micro dots of color. That's just the wrong color in the wrong place. What is it with these head magnifiers today? getting seriously double vision. Seriously a mess there. That was had a little bit of I had a tiny problem that I managed to turn into a big problem. Okay, so what happened was a little bit of the ink got below man. Okay, I made a big mess there. There was the tiniest little dot of ink, the most infinitesimal little bitty spot, right? Infinitesimal, invisible spot. And what happened was I tried to cover it over, and this paint dissolved the paint underneath it. Gigantic flaw. I don't know how I managed that. I don't know how I'm going to fix this. Need to let the paint dry. Maybe once it's dry, that was just a disaster. Tiniest little infinitesimal invisible dot has turned into a blot. Hi, I was doing really well. I was doing really well until just now. And now I have a disaster on my hands. I turned something that was invisible into a mess. And I think I might end up delaying. Wow, I can't believe that. Sorry, I just have to keep saying, I can't believe that happened. Yeah, see what happened was these little details here in the panel. I was successfully at I was successfully touching them up with a felt point pen. And there, right under here was an infinitesimal, tiniest little dot of ink that got out of the way. And I tried to cover it up with paint, but the paint melted the ink, and now it's spread all over the place as a flaw. And I think what I'm going to have to do, I think I'm going to have to repaint. I think I'm going to have to respray this. I mean, I've got a real mess here. Wow. And this is a really difficult, this was a difficult thing to mask. And it was the next thing that needed to be done. But you can see on camera, you can see the difference in gloss there. I'm sorry, I really don't know what to do about this. Things actually were going pretty well until it was like, oh, just leave it alone. And I just couldn't leave it alone. And in fact, okay. So in order to fix this, okay, I need to do some masking here. Emergency masking. We'll be doing emergency masking and hopefully very careful spray painting. This edge is fine. So even though what I want to do is I just want to cover the gray-green part. Here. And then I'm going to spray this over break. Oh, yeah. So there. This is how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Okay. I managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory by making this hideous flaw right there where it is going to show in a significant and unpleasant way. And I stopped my monologue about Gilligan's Island at the same time, and that was going pretty well too. You know, all sorts of talking about all of this, the major changes that happened after the first season. When Professor and Marianne were named. And apparently they changed quite a lot of the opening sequence. In terms of the location of the ship and the picture of the island that they used. Yeah, and I think the better part of valor here is to cover up the back of this with a piece of paper like I did before, because I don't want to get, the way this is going today, the way this is going now is this could just be more of a mess. Anyway, relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons turned into a minor disaster. A minor disaster with Dyson Dungeons today. Thanks to carelessness. Just trying to do too much. Tried to do too much with too little skill. And yeah, it just did not turn out well. So here I am. I'm trying to kind of frantically cover up this stuff here so that I can spray paint it, re-gold it. I'm going to re-gold it, and hopefully that will make it, will fix the flaw. And then at that point, I'll decide whether I want to mess around with the felt tip pens or not. Well, sometimes things go okay, sometimes they don't. This was it definitely did not kind of time. Apologize to everybody that once again we have learned that relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons is very much sometimes a how not to show. And what you just witnessed was this was really kind of coming along. I expected to make a lot of progress, and now I'm not. I get to redo some work, and hopefully the redo will look okay. There was a flaw there anyway. There, that's a story. I'm sticking to that story. Is that there was already a flaw there anyway, and I just made it obvious. Yeah, I should tape this. The one thing I get to do after this is I get to buy more of this masking tape because I'm using it up quickly. So what was going to happen before I decided to mess with this, okay, was that I was going to install these little tanks, and then this part would have been completely done. It would have been finished, and I could move on to other things. But it's not, because it's messed up. And I need to do a redo here. Okay, well, at least this is done. This tank is installed. It's not bouncing around anymore. The touch-up on here worked okay, which was good. Yeah. So what now? What can I not mess up? Well, one thing is not mess up this brush. Let's not mess up that brush. Yeah, there must be some things I can work on that are not a disaster yet. Here we go. I think I've found something to do. I've got this part, these parts go away because I can't put those on until this is redone. But I've got this, this, and this, and I think I can possibly do this without making a mess. Okay, this is now painted 2 different colors. I can unmask this. And what this is a shield that goes on the bottom of the service module. This is the inside. It goes on there, and this is the outside. And I painted the outside a different color. I didn't paint it the white, the pearly white of the service module itself, because it isn't. It's not like the outside of it. It's a shield, a special shield that goes on the module. Came out okay. It goes on. See these little radiators here? These openings go here, like that. Okay, and then this is the rocket nozzle. This is the nozzle of the service module engine that goes in like this. And the way this works, okay, is that this needs to get cemented to that, and then it's held in place by friction. Okay, so this becomes part of this, and then the nozzle itself, where friction worked, is the thing that actually holds this in place. Okay, and then this is the high gain antenna that is located there. And now I need to get this to adhere to that. And there's this tiny little ridge around the outside here that needs to adhere to that. And it's all painted. I'm going to use contact cement on that because some of it's going to ooze out, and I don't want to mar the surface of the paint. Okay, so I'm going to use contact cement around the edge here and a little bit around there, just enough so it holds, right? Holds firmly. And then if any of the contact cement oozes out, I can clean it off with a pin. It's almost like rubber cement in that it adheres to itself extremely well, but I can clean it off of a surface where I don't want it. And this is the bracket that holds this in place. And the trick with this is to make sure that it's attached correctly, which is like this, so that this is facing out, and then it folds out and faces forward. I discovered that from the box top. And I'm going to use the contact cement for this as well. So my contact cement applicator. Which is a toothpick. This stuff is very gelatinous. It's very, look at, you can see how it sticks to everything like that. It sets up pretty quickly. It's a little bit hard to apply because it's so gel-like. It works really well for the what I'm doing with it, but it would be even better if it were more liquid. Oh, wow. Today today was going okay until there was a dot, an infinitesimally small dot of what looked to be Rogue felt tip pen ink that I decided could not be there. Attempted to cover up with gold paint. The gold paint dissolved it. And I should have known this because this has happened before, that ink dissolves in the paint. Okay. And so as I tried to cover it up, it just dissolved the ink and spread it around. And that was a disaster. And now I need to repaint. I need to repaint that because disaster. And I hope it comes out okay once it's repainted. Otherwise, I'll have to buy a new model kit or try to find a replacement part or something, or try to take the paint off. I don't know. The options are not good. Or just live with a fatally flawed part. But, you know, I tried to do something, to improve it from a B minus to like a B plus, and I ended up with a C minus. Maybe even worse. Yep. Yep. Sometimes it just goes badly. And this time that was a thing that went poorly, very poorly. This to be where I want it and not where I don't. A frequent theme, painting, or very much not relaxing painting today. That was that went into that was a major oops. That went into major oops territory. Went into face palm, groan, just sadness. It turned into sadness. Okay, if this works the way it should, when I put this on, it will stick. And I should then be able to go around and, it's holding really well. I should be able to clean this up then with a toothpick and a pin where some of the cement oozed out. Yeah, it comes out pretty well. Okay. Well, yeah, it's adhering. It isn't really too much of a mess. The line is not perfect, but not bad. Um, Freaking me out a little bit. The hardened cement takes on the same color as this piece here. And as I'm pulling it off, I kept thinking, pulling off the paint, but no, I'm just pulling off excess cement. Well, at least this isn't a disaster. That's going to be that's that's the say the headline or something for the last 15 minutes. At least this wasn't a disaster. Hope this other thing gets fixed. If not, um, well, sometimes things just are not what you hope them to be. And why? Why did that come up? Come on, stay in place. It started to separate. No, I know what I'm just. It's me. I'm doing that. I'm doing that. Well, I spoke too soon about it not being a disaster. Not a disaster yet, but it became a problem. There, I was creating a problem that did not need to exist. Yeah, this is a this is like a Tensai. This is a Tensai episode of. It should have been relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. I should have been celebrating the detail that I added to the inside of the door. I should have been saying, "Oh, no, that was a good thing. It looks a lot better this way than if it did before." Before I put the little highlights on, that's how it should have worked out, but it didn't. It turned out to be very different. It turned out to be, I can't believe that happened. What a mess. So instead of adding detail and going from a B to a B plus, at almost a failing grade, almost a, I really, really needed to have left that alone. And that's happened in the past. I think you've seen this where I just do one little thing, one little thing, one little thing too much. Just leave it alone. And that was a leave it alone moment. This is a why is that not coming off moment. There, tweezers are good. Okay, that's adhering. What I need to do is make sure that there's not too much. I don't want rubber cement on this side because when it needs to slide in and out. This is held on by friction, not by adhesive. The paint on here is all getting all scarred up because of where it rubs. Paint that or not, I probably should. It'll be touchy to paint it because of the okay, I'm going to let this set. And let me see if I can get this on without a disaster here. It's little bits of rubber cement. I'm just seeing this is a dot, a lot like the dot that created the other problem. Okay, so the way this works is this sets on in here, and this goes over it like that and holds it in place. Except like that. Good thing I did that because it would have been a disaster. This folds out like that. The same rubber cement, not the same. I can't use the same because it's on there. So it'd be very difficult to get that off and reuse it. So I'm going to use some other stuff I'm squeezing out of the tube here. This needs to be right, just putting it on this and sticking it on and see if it sticks. This isn't how this usually works, but tiniest little bit on either side here, right at the bottom. What I don't want is to get it on the antenna. And I don't want it to be on the antenna because the antenna has to swivel. I just put it on the wrong thing. Oh my, oh my. I did. I put the rubber cement, I put the contact cement on the wrong surface. This is like the front of it. It's not the bottom of it. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh. What a world, what a world. That was truly amazingly bad. Okay, it needs to go on here on the bottom. Well, do that. I'm having serious Wednesday-itis here. Things going south rapidly. Okay, I'm muttering to myself about how things are going. At least I caught this before it was too late. Okay, that would have been a mess that I didn't need. Let's try this again. Tweezers. Okay. So this is going to go here. This goes there. That goes over it. That will hold. Okay. So the way this works is that this is the high gain antenna that goes on this goes here. Okay, I'm not going to put that on now because I want the contact cement to set really well. It needs a good deal of setting and hardenings. But this goes on here like this. For some reason, this is held in place by the rocket nozzle in here, okay, by friction, and it's removable. The shield is removable, so you can see the detail that I very carefully painted of all of the piping here and the radiators and stuff. And this high gain antenna during launch is folded down. This is actually turns over. Okay, it's upside down now. This is the bottom because that's the rocket part, and then it folds out like that. And what's interesting is if you look very carefully, you can see that there's a repair there. A little bit of a discontinuity where that broke off. And what's most interesting is that the one on the box was broken in the same place. Does it seem like it's going faster than the sub? It might be. There's fewer little tiny parts. The parts are bigger. I don't know. Maybe I'm more experienced. Maybe it would be going even faster if I didn't make huge mistakes and make a mess of things. It would be going even faster then. But no, I did. That was not careful. That was a frustration. Toss it. I have cement on my fingers. Okay, well, this bit, once it's done, and I'm going to let it sit until Friday, I'm just not going to mess with it. The contact cement actually hardens really well. Okay, it gives you a little bit of motion at first when it's first put in, which is good, but then it's very solid after that. But yeah, as I was saying, you can see the break there. The one on the box top was repaired in exactly the same place. It's almost like the part was produced broken. But again, this goes on there. It's held in place by this part of the rocket nozzle, which goes into here, and it's just held by friction. I will need to do some touching up of the paint on here because it rubs off on there. But there, so there, this needs to be redone. So there's that. Yeah, what have I got? Well, what I do have is I've got the little things that need to go on here, but I can't because of the mess that I made there. If I take a break and I spray it right at the beginning of the break, right at the very, very beginning of the break, and I just need to spray it lightly because I need to just get rid of the flaw here. I should be able to, it'll be dry enough for me to install those things, and I'm just not going to mess. I don't know if I'm going to mess with those or not. We'll see how they turn out after they're resprayed. So let me get these on camera so you can see the bits that are done. Okay, it's beginning to look like pieces of a rocket. And what's left, let's see what's left. Several things. These are the little bitty tanks that need to be installed there after the paint dries. That will be, tweezers work. And then I've got, well, basically what has to happen next is, besides knocking things down, and I'm just groaning a lot today because everything is just not going very well. I need to paint the outside of this, all three of these components, that white color. Okay. And that means hopefully this will dry well enough so that I can tape it, or else it'll just be put off for a while. So let me say this. If I weren't having to respray this, these bits here would have been installed by now. Okay. And what I would be doing is I would be taping the green parts of these. Okay. I'd be taping these so that I could spray paint the outside. So after break, I will be taping these on the inside so that I can get the white paint nicely all around the outside of this so that these can be cemented onto that. And then these bits pose another kind of challenge. Okay. These bits are reaction control rockets. If you can't see them, there's these tiny little brackets. You can see the little brackets here. Okay. They get attached to these little slots. But they each need 4, if you see the little pins, can you see the tiny little points? 4 of those go on each one of these. Yep, that'll be a thing. I'll probably be spending most of Friday attaching 16 rocket nozzles to 4 of these brackets. These, this is another temptation. This is a temptation. The temptation is to just leave these brackets the primer white instead of painting them the pearl white that the rest of this will be painted. There's 2 reasons why that's tempting. One is I can go ahead and start assembling these and putting them together. The other is that it might actually look okay. That they would not be, that they would not have been painted the same color as the hull, basically, because they're an attachment. Let me test something. I just want to crush this. I'm just going to go find a new one and start over. Okay. This is pretty much all that's left of it, these bits. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the escape module. This is the escape tower, okay, which is painted the glossy white. You can see it because it's glossy. And so I want to see what this looks like up against it. The contrast is just going to be too much. It's going to look crappy. So I need to paint those. And then on Friday, let me just say I'll be spending a lot of time attaching these little rocket nozzles to these brackets. I'll do that before break. And then these brackets, once the nozzles are attached, I will attach to these hull pieces. Actually, I won't do that until after these are assembled and attached to the into the interior of the service module. Because if I bump them, they'll break off. And when I'm assembling this, I probably will be touching it in different ways. So there. By making the mess on this, by creating that flaw, I have probably added an entire stream, one entire streaming day to the conclusion of the service module. Sometimes that happens. So what can I do before break? Let me do something that involves not having a disaster. I had these on a piece of cardboard with 2-sided tape when I primed them. And then I took them off and I tossed the cardboard with the 2-sided tape on it when I should have just left them on, knowing that I needed to paint them. But at the time I had thought, well, what I should do is I should attach these first and then paint the whole thing. But I thought much better of that when I realized that I'd have to attach the rocket nozzles to these while they were attached to this and then install it. That's going to be much safer to put these on later. So, this is a way bigger piece of cardboard than I need, but it'll do. It's a cardboard. What I'm going to do here is, this is 2-sided sticky tape, is I need 4 little pieces of sticky tape. So I'm going to cut this off here. And turn this into 4 pieces. 1, each. Give them some distance between them so that they don't form a paint shadow on each other. Well, I successfully cut 4 pieces of tape without cutting myself, or just a day. It is just a day. I did get this done. I did get this assembled. It seems to be holding together. It's not too messed up. It needs tiny little bits of touching up that hopefully I can do without getting paint on the wrong places. There's a spot down there where I scraped the paint off. We'll see how I do. It's one of those things, that's another one of those things where it's just leave it alone, and then I won't, and then I'll create a problem where there wasn't. Because that seems to be what I'm doing today. And all it was just an innocent monologue about the changes that apparently happened after the first season of Gilligan's Island. The changes not only were the theme song, but also the entire opening credits, in which the professor and Mary Ann were named, but also the location, apparently the location of Gilligan's Island. So that was a thing. So these are now ready to be painted. They're pearlescent white. All right. So what I managed to accomplish is to tell you about the changes in Gilligan's Island. I added an adhesive to hold this tank in because it was flopping around. How long have I been painting miniatures and things? Well, I think the stream has been going on now for over a year. Started out with painting dungeon tiles and minifigs. Like, I don't know, the latest ones I did was this octopus. It was the last one I did. The blue striped, I think it's called, octopus. And a giant frog or toad. That one came out pretty well. I like the way that it ended up being shaded. That came out okay. And a little sprite, there, that came out all right. And so let me do that. I'm going to set this aside because this will get painted some other time. I'm going to show you the dungeon tiles. I can do that probably without breaking anything or hurting anything. So we produce our own dungeon tiles for a Dungeons and Dragons show. Okay. And they're printed on these 3D printers behind us, PLA printers. They had our DM started with a design and then modified it, so it's much, much better. The walls and the floors are printed out as a single piece, okay, which is kind of cool. It's able to produce that 90-degree angle really well. And then underneath here are ball magnets in the corners. There's little wells in which the ball magnets go. Thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. And then this plate goes over the top, and there's 8 ball magnets, 2 in each corner. And what that allows is that they stick to each other. And you can orient them any way you want because the ball magnets rotate in the wells. So unlike some, they claim to be magnetic, you need to have a metal surface. They stick to the surface. These actually stick to each other. And what they allow one to do is if you got a bunch of these are just wall tiles. There's floor tiles. There's cut stone with a built-in sigil, a fire sigil. That's printed right on to the tile and then hand painted. So once these are done, they get primed, base coated, detailed, and then washed. So there's a multi-step process. And this stream actually started with the production of large numbers of these dungeon tiles for our Dungeons and Dragons show. And I think if you were to catch our D&D show, the last 2 episodes, if you were to go back on YouTube and watch the last 2 episodes, they feature several of the dungeons that were made with the tiles that we have. So the stones, these are really cool. These simulate wood. So the way these were painted is that they're primed, base coated in kind of a tan brown, and then washed with a dark kind of brownish red wash so that it looks like rich wood, and the graining that is in the print, okay, the wood grain shows up, and then the stucco part is painted last as a detail. And they're painted front and back, so you can be both inside a room and go through a door and outside. And in fact, I'm not going to reach it because I'll knock something over. Well, I will. I'll show it to you. I didn't knock anything over. They can be made with doors, and the doors are pin hinged so that they open and close. So these are painted the same way, the base coat and then the wash and then the detail painting of the strapping and the door handle. So yeah, these all got painted on this stream, and then we ran out of minifigs and dungeon tiles, and I have a bunch of models that I bought when I retired that I never got around to building, and the DM encouraged me to work on those too. So that's what I've been doing. I finished a Renwall submarine that I keep threatening I will show to people, but it's way over there, covered up and hard to reach. And someday I will. I'll show it off. It's the first ballistic launching nuclear submarine, the George Washington, the prototype. And the hull folds down, and the whole interior, you can see the whole interior of it. And that took forever to build. I usually just did it one day a week on Wednesdays. We called it Submarine Wednesday. And it took like over a year of Wednesdays to finish it. But I finished that, back in April, I think. No, March. I finished it in March. And then started working on the Apollo stack. And this model, I can show you this instruction book, looks like this. I finished the escape tower. I'm working on the service module here. When this is done, probably next week, I'll have it done. Okay, assuming I don't make any more disasters. This is kind of like the submarine in that, there's this component of it where there's a door that opens up to show the interior detail. So it's a little bit like the submarine in that sense. And the carrier for the lunar excursion module opens up on all 4 sides, and the LEM sits inside. So I'm going to be working, after I'm done with the service module, which is, like I said, it'll probably take all of next week just because stuff just keeps happening. Some things have gone really quite well, like attaching these little doors on the top of the escape module. I didn't think I'd be able to do that, and they just popped right on. It was amazing. But then there's other things, like I try to do a little detail on the interior of the door that opens up on the service module, and it fails. What I'm going to do next is build this base and these fairings. Okay. They're really large pieces. They're painted this sort of gray-green on the inside. Okay. The interior. And the exterior is painted the pearl white. So most of it is just going to be finding the parts, prepping them, because there's flashing on them and mold marks and all sorts of junk that has to come off. And then painting and masking. So as you can see, I know it's kind of hard to see here. You can see the engine nozzle and the high gain antenna. This is when they're installed on the bottom of the service module components. Okay, when this is wrapped in the outside, it looks like this, and then those bits hang down from the bottom and fit in just above the LEM. And they rest. I don't know how they did this. They must have taped it on the back or something. There's 4 of these leaves that fold up, and then this whole stack sits on top of it. They've got it sitting on just 2 of them, and there's no way that you would be able to very carefully balance that on just those 2, especially since they're designed to open up. So behind this, there must be a fair amount of tape holding these leaves together and that on top of it. I guess, if it doesn't show, it doesn't exist. So, yeah, this is the part that I've been working on. These are the interior components, these tanks here that you can see. That were these bits. And then this got assembled. This assembly here is basically this thing. And this is the door that I messed up earlier, where these tanks go on. I've got the tanks ready to go, and I tried to put some detail color on this panel, and it was an epic fail. So once I get that repainted over break, which will be happening any minute now, then maybe it'll dry enough I can work on that. And if I don't want to take a chance, I'll do it on Friday. And then I just finished this bit here, the bottom part, with the rocket nozzle and the high gain antenna. And so what I'll be doing after break is pretty much what I'm going to be doing is taping these, masking these on the inside so that I can paint the outsides. And when the outsides are painted, then I can install them into around the outside of this service module. I did some things that were kind of a waste of time, like I painted this the blue-green. That's going to be invisible. You're not going to be able to see it once this thing's put together. So, but anyway, I did. So yeah, the stream today, the rest of the stream is going to be masking these 2 parts and hopefully this one as well, if this dries enough so that I can mask the inside of it, so that I can paint these and these 4 brackets that hold the reaction control jets tomorrow stream. And then on Friday, I will hopefully be able to assemble these 4 brackets with all the little rockets on them, and we'll see. And if I can't finish Friday, and I probably won't, okay, I'm going to start to get the components of the base. The instructions say that should be like the last thing to build. It's this here, basically. Okay. So there's 4 big panels, 4 hinges, and this big round thing. And I'm going to prep those by getting rid of the burrs and everything else on them. And getting them taped so that I can start painting them. I'll paint the insides, the blue-gray first, and then I'll paint the outside. And then that'll be done. And then that'll give me something onto which I can set the service module. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to start working on the lunar module, which, as you can see, has a lot of pieces, including more of these tiny little bits, little struts that move and bend and are liable to break instead of smoothly operating. Yeah, anyway. Oh, the other thing I can work on, and maybe I'll do that, is I can work on the astronauts. There are 2 standing up astronauts with their moon packs. And there are 3 laying down astronauts that go, sitting astronauts that go in the command module. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm going to take a break and repaint this, and hopefully, you look at it and it's not too bad, but right there is a blot, and I don't want that, so I'm going to respray this with the gold paint and hopefully be able to get more done today. Hopefully I can get more done today without having a problem. Actually, when it's done, it is pretty cool. Like the submarine looks really good. And I'm really happy with how the escape module turned out, because it was, for me, at my skill level 0.8 out of a 1 to 3 scale, it was a really challenging thing to assemble. I'll be back in about a half an hour. I'm going to spray paint this, let it dry enough, at least so I can bring it back. Yeah, I'll put it in that box down there, and hopefully it'll look okay, and I can move along. So I'll see you then. Be back in just a little while. It's back. Okay. Well, I resprayed this, and if you knew where to look, like I do, you would see the flaws. But if you don't, you won't. It just looks like a little shadow. So I'm going to say this is saved, and I want it to dry a little bit further yet before I get back to it. Hi. But at least it looks okay, and I think what I'm going to do is not mess with the detail. That's what got me into trouble last time. It's just going to stay gold, but I'll let it dry for a while. What I need to do now is these need to be painted white on the outside, as does that bit that I just showed you. So I need to mask these. So I have to, unfortunately, do some more really boring taping. Okay. Been spending a lot of time taping this stuff for spray painting. I'm guessing that, that's not going to end, because the parts that I'm going to be doing next, which are the base here, the base and these panels that open and are hinged, those, they're really big, and they need to be painted one color on the inside and white on the outside. So I'm going to be going through a lot of tape. I need to remember to order more of this. Red Dragon, you had to do that. Yeah. Anyway, there's not much that can be done other than getting it done, I guess. So I'm going to start putting this tape on the painted surface because it doesn't pull the tape off. I mean, paint off. At least it hasn't yet. And just go to it, I guess. I need to get the paint. I want this painted white. So as before, I need to get the tape so that it just barely, just like a 64th of an inch or less, extends beyond the edge of the surface. Itself to be incapable of taping in a straight line today too. At least this. Okay, see, I just want the edge to just be slightly over. That's probably a little more than I need, because I don't want it to fold over and cover it up. Allergies are really bad, and this is a phenomenon of relaxing painting. Okay, is that invariably, which means seriously, it's all the time. When I come back down after break, it feels colder down here than it did before. I don't know why that is. Even when the heat is on in the winter, it just feels colder after break than it does before. It's just really odd, kind of a weird thing. So this is not terribly challenging taping. Okay. It's not super challenging, but it needs to be done with some care because once the white paint is on, anyway, yeah, it just needs to be done carefully. So it's going to be slow. What I'm hoping to accomplish then during the rest of the stream today is to get this taped, these two pieces, regardless of how long it takes and how slow it is, so that I can paint them white. And once they're painted white on the outside, then I can actually install them. The other thing I hope to do today yet is if that paint dries enough on the thing I just repainted over break, if that dries enough, I hope to install these little tanks, put those on, and maybe even tape that so that the outside can be painted the pearl white color. It's a little bit of a challenge because of the ridge there. Yeah, that didn't, it covered the ridge, but it didn't get the edge right. Okay, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to put this on and then snip it off. not the best way to have done that, but it worked. This would have been a lot faster except for the little ridge there. And that ridge is there because that's what holds the upper and lower bulkheads on. The upper and lower bulkheads of the service module interior. So this is an up to but not over kind of situation over and over again. And I'm hoping the lines come out nice and clean. I'm hoping so anyway. Or at least well enough so that it looks good from a reasonable distance. Secret of model making for us amateurs. Amateur, not in both senses of the word. That is, I'm not getting paid to do this, so it's definitely amateur. But also the level of quality. You know, people say, well, real professional, which doesn't necessarily mean getting paid, but being really good at something. And amateur, although you could potentially, be really good at something, oftentimes often also means not so good at it. You could use the term like apprentice. Or just not really good at it. just not that really good at it. So if I were on camera, right? I mean, it's not that much fun watching tape go on, but in this case, you weren't even watching it because I managed to move off camera, which is why I've got this monitor up here that lets me see. So are you getting, I'm still getting these light and dark bands that are moving vertically on the screen. They're horizontal bands that are moving from top to bottom. I'm hoping that you are not seeing those, that it's just an artifact of my monitor. The pieces I'll be doing next are really large, and they will require quite a bit of taping, at least in terms of quantity. But I'm hoping that it goes a little more quickly than this. This is going to be, I'm going to have to do this in all sorts of little bits. So if, got an edge here, but I also have a vertical edge up here, and that needs to be really carefully taped because that is a highly visible portion of the model. And very visible. It's right at the top of the service module. And when the command module comes off, that is the first thing you see. This is a situation where the tape sticks to my fingers and not to the surface. And so positioning tape over tape. sometimes that happens. Yeah, this is taking forever with this one. This one's way bigger. That should take even more forever, even longer forever. Okay, well, I was having a monologue about the changes that happened on Gilligan's Island after the first season. You know, it stopped being in black and white and started being in color. Theme song changed, and apparently also the location of the recording of the island in the opening and closing credits, you know, where the ship is shown on the shore. Sorts of big changes. You know, sorts of big changes happening on Gilligan's Island after the first season. Some of them, you know, had to do with the cast and all. I'm just speculating that what happened was that since the credits needed to be reshot in order to now include Marianne and the professor in the opening credits, the theme song was just a sound over. But the credits too. The credits should have just been, you know, superimposed on. I'm not sure. It's weird, isn't it? I would think, in thinking about it, that they would just be superimposed on the background, and you wouldn't have to change the actual. Well, I hope I can find that. I just dropped the tape. I do need it because you know, the rest of this needs to be taped. This white line up here to be very nice and crisp and clean and straight. And I hope it ends up that way. It looks like it is so far. Yeah. The rest of it I can use the blue tape. Question. The edges of these little flanges. This one, they should be painted white. This one isn't. This one has never got the blue gray on it. And I'm going to cover them up. They're part of the interior. They're not part of the exterior. So I'm just going to treat it that way. Okay. Maybe a little bit of a gap here. There it is. So when I'm done covering this, I need to find the tape. dropped it here, and I thought, sorry, I'm going to be off camera for a bit. Yellow on yellow. Waste of tape, but it's just this bit here. It's got tape over it. Yeah, to make that sound whenever it's really, how could I? Okay, well, there, this is masked. And then when I spray paint this, I'll need to be really careful to spray it from the edge, not just the top, okay, but also from the edges, so that the edge, top and bottom and sides, are painted the white pearlescent. So this looks like it's ready to go. Set that there. Now I got this much bigger one. Do this top part first. And then, yeah, tape. I don't have to tape all around it. This is going to take a while. But that's okay. While I'm doing this, the gold paint is drying, which is a good thing, because then I'll be able to maybe finish that piece yet today. I don't know. Got about an hour. At the rate I'm going, this should take like 6 hours. So slow. Frequently, as I repeat myself, yeah, let's just knock things over. I could have knocked that over with the scissors and lost those little tanks on the floor. That was an almost disaster. So I talked about the genres TV shows because they were also very derivative for a long time. You know, one channel would try something new, like they would say, "Oh, I know what we're going to do. We're going to do a Western, you know, a medical show." I think Dr. Kildare, I think, came out first. I don't remember. And then one of the other networks, there were 3 of them, right? Said, "Oh yeah, that is popular. People are watching that. We need to do a medical show too." And then Ben Casey came out, or the opposite, one or the other. One came first, and then the other was the derivative, right? So that happened a lot, of course. For a long time, everybody had like 6 Westerns, or at least it felt like that. There were only 2 doctors' shows that I recall. So that genre of television, I would say, was probably not very successful, because if you only have 2 of them, you know, instead of a half or a dozen, that's it. Your audience seems to be more limited. But I think kind of in the spirit of the James Bond movies, came out in the early to mid 60s, there's this explosion of like sort of spy related shows. Let's talk about those a little bit. I've talked about them before, but it's like which ones were the best ones, really? There was Man from Uncle. I think that was like one of the first ones that came out because I remember in grade school being in like seventh or eighth grade, somewhere, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, somewhere in that range. The all of the girls to whom we were just barely starting to pay attention were debating who was sexier, Napoleon Solo or Ilya Kuryakin. And there was the Ilya Kuryakin crowd and the Napoleon Solo crowd. Nothing ever got violent because, you're like a 12-year-old girl, right? But it was that show was a thing among that group of people. So that was one of the memories of that. The Man from Uncle really attracted a lot of attention that way. The boys, on the other hand, if I recall correctly, the boys, on the other hand, really liked the Avengers. Well, people, it was, I think it was British actually, because the actors were British, but the actress who played Emma Peel, I mean, you could debate about Ilya Kuryakin and Napoleon Solo, but there was no debate about Emma Peel. So there, the other side of that. Then a whole others came out. Then there was Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible was really repetitive. There was always somebody who needed to be impersonated. Okay. So I think it was almost always the Martin Landau character. Can't remember the character's name. Somehow was able to replicate the voice and appearance of the party that had to be replicated that week. And we always knew who it was. There never was much of a secret about it in the show, but then there was always the unveiling at the end of the show when the rubber mask came off. It was always just a full head, full face rubber mask that somehow, was able to actually just totally replicate somebody's appearance. It's like, oh, that was the person who was being impersonated by the Mission Impossible force. Mission Impossible had all of these really stunning special effects, like the mission always came on a tape that was played on basically what was at the time a portable tape recorder. So it's tiny little reel of tape. Mm-hmm. This mission, should you choose to accept it, followed by, and it was always this tape will self-destruct in like 3 seconds or something. And then there was just a little poof of dry ice vapor, which was supposed to represent the tape self-destructing. That became a trope. We didn't really have tropes then the same way now, but you know, that was the thing about Mission Impossible. And then one of the characters became one of the other characters. I suppose that was kind of a good deal, right? In the sense that you were an actor who was supposed to be playing the other character, but the other character continued to be played by the other actor, because the rubber mask thing didn't really ever work. Yeah, so you got to act as though you were in that entire episode, but you didn't have to do anything at all. Nothing. You know? You just got a free pass that episode. I have to say, Mission Impossible was never really my favorite because it was just so repetitive. It's just the same show over and over. They probably all were. That one seemed to be sort of very much so that. I hope that I'm going to do one of those things I probably shouldn't do again. Take a file. But what's happened here is that there's, I'll just call it overspray, that the blue gray got over the side here. And I'm not sure how well that white is going to cover the color. You know, the white on white works pretty well on a thin coat, but this bit here, it's almost like a channel. It's weird. Trying not to do, which I almost did, is have the file slip and scrape the paint off the inside where I do want it gray-green. Toss that aside. It's not perfectly clean, but it's better. So if there's an issue of coverage, it will be minimized. At least that's the hope. The way this will work is I get this tape on, and then I take it up to a well-ventilated area and spray paint it. Before I do, I check the tape, one more time to make sure that it's covering the gray-green, but not, because sometimes it does. It gets bumped. It gets folded over on the edge and folds over onto the surface that needs to be painted white. So I'll double check that before I actually apply the paint. I should have done the top part first. The top part is an annoying part because the ridge is right up at the top. Yeah, and I failed. And I got the tape. I got the tape over the ridge, but I didn't get it all the way up to the end. I think I'm going to cut smaller strips of paint. Tape. So several things happen after break. One is that it always feels colder down here, just always does. And today is no exception. Even though it's really quite warm out, the air conditioning in the house is running, and the cold air sinks and makes the basement cold, even though it's warm out. But even when the furnace is on, anyway, it just feels colder down here. It just does, and it makes it a little bit uncomfortable. The other thing is that I start to lose focus. And I start doing things like naming things the wrong color, not getting the tape where I want it twice. I do want it slightly over the edge, and I got it like not quite up to the edge that time. Yeah, it really would have been better for me to do this first. I'm going to have to, I'm taping this now for the third time as I fail to get it on the edge properly. So you get to watch me do tape over tape over tape. Look at that. Over tape over tape. And yeah, maybe this is the best part of it. Best way to do it is, except the curve is so, anyway, it's curved so much I can't get the scissors in there. Okay, well, that was not very well done. The time is marching on. Okay, well, that one wasn't good either. I need to cut them shorter because of the curve. They stick out on the ends and are short in the middle. It is, and I'm going to have to just trim these as well as I can. No, it looks like it's almost done. What did I just do? I just did. See what I did? I set it on edge like that. There's tape down there. And that tape, by setting it on the edge, either folded it over, pushed it away, depending. In some spots it folded over, and in some parts it folded. And I know better than to do that. But I did it anyway because it's after break. Focus is gone. I feel cold. It's time to whine. It's whining time with Dyson Dungeons. Arbitrary complaining about things like the temperature and stickiness of tape and everything. Just, this is an opportunity for me to just complain about everything. Okay, so yes, the spy genre came out after the James Bond movies. I think that's what really triggered it. So we had Man from U.N.C.L.E., and we had The Avengers, and we had I Spy, and we had Mission Impossible, and then we had the comedy version of Get Smart. Wasn't the Barbara Feldon character wasn't quite an appeal. Okay. Bad. Bad representation of the ideal for a 12-year-old boy watching TV. So yeah, what else was there? There must have been more. There must have been more of these shows than just those. I just remember that there were tons of them. You know, they kind of filtered over into the detective story things then too. But the spy ones, oh yeah, yeah. Secret Agent Man, that was really good with Patrick McGowan, who later morphed into The Prisoner, which was a really fascinating kind of TV show. He insisted on doing that, and he was a star, so he got to. Um, that was kind of interesting. Piece of paper going to be big enough? No, it's going to be just small, just a little too small. But rather than, you know, I'm just going to not. I'm just going to just stick this on as well as I can. You would think that this would be an easy thing to do right now, and it would be an easy thing to do, is to tape this piece of paper onto this. If I weren't cold and incoherent. I'm using the blue tape on this like before because I'm taping onto tape. The yellow tape is really good because it doesn't, at least not yet, hasn't pulled any of the paint away from the already painted surface. I can't, I haven't done that with the blue tape. I don't really want to take a chance. So I use the blue tape to tape onto the tape. This. Enough. Use. Okay. This looks like it'll be okay. Like I said before, I actually paint it. I will make sure that I push down the tape all around the edges because sometimes it does separate a little bit from the edge. And then I'll check to also make sure that it's not folded over the edge, which would then cause a paint shadow and a lack of painting where I want it. So these two bits here are ready to be painted. That pearlescent white on the outside, the whole outside and the edges. And I'll need to make sure that I get it. The inside of this did not get painted very well when I painted it the first time, and I had to respray the whole thing. So I'm going to probably two coat this just to make sure. And I'm going to try to remember to set them down this way, not the other way, so I don't fold the tape over. I'm going to put these into the carry it up and paint it box. This is the like paint that I'm going to be using. Set this down here. Go over down on the floor. Is this dry enough? I can touch the gold paint on the tape. Yeah, it's okay. So, well, let's unmask it. Hopefully my rush emergency masking job worked out okay. And I am not going to try to do the detail on those components here. That was too much of a traumatic failure. It was a traumatic failure. And so, no, it's just not going to happen. Two things need to happen with this. Those bits need to be installed. Okay. And then this thing needs to be masked around the edges, just like those did, so that I can paint the outside white. I can do the masking, paint it, and then install those at the last minute before I put this in to the model. Or I can install those bits now. And then, no, I'm going to mask it first, and I'll explain why. Okay. The reason I am masking it first, there's still a flaw up there. The reason I'm going to mask it first before installing those is that if I install them and then mask it, there's a good chance I could knock them off. They'll just be in the way. Okay. So I'm going to mask this and actually paint the outside of it and then install these bits as one of the last things I do before I install the door in the I also am I'm also not using this box for my take it down and paint it box because I need a deep box into which I can put these components and keep them dust free. This needs some touching up, paint touching up. I'm not going to do that this stream because as I lose focus, there's a really good chance that I will mess it up. Okay, these parts will get installed later. And these parts will get installed later. Later being probably Friday. These are going to get painted the white. And so I'm just going to use this thing, this box here, as my, this is where I put things that are going to be painted box. And now I'm going to tape this off all around the edges like I did the other one. I am going to start at the top. That was the hardest part. As I'm doing this, I want to talk about Dyson Dungeons. If you haven't, please check out our Dungeons and Dragons show. It streams with a live chat 3 Sundays a month at 2. And if you miss the episodes, and that you very well might have missed them, you can catch them on YouTube or listen to them as a podcast. And although this stream is just a spin-off of the real show, the real thing, which is the Dungeons and Dragons show. So that's what Dyson Dungeons is a group of family and friends who produce a Dungeons and Dragons show, which is a really, really good one. People who have, I can probably give you testimonials. Maybe even in chat on the painting stream, I can get a testimonial about what a good D&D show it is. And I want to encourage everybody who may have, watched some of these painting episodes to check out the origin of relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons by watching the D&D show. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. You enjoy watching it or listening to it or both as much as we do creating it. And then this stream all started from the fabrication and painting of the dungeon tiles that we use on our D&D show. And when there weren't enough of those, I pulled out some models that I bought when I retired that I never got around to doing. And I've been working on those. This is actually the third one. The one just before this was the submarine, which gave rise to the very famous Submarine Wednesday series, when the work on the submarine happened on Wednesdays. The very first one, I didn't want to tape it that way. Why am I folding it over onto a surface that I don't want to be taped? The very first one I did, and you'd have to go back, I think it's still on YouTube, was a Fink, an Ed Big Daddy Roth Fink model. That was another artifact of the 60s. I built those in like 8th, 9th grade, that kind of thing. The famous Rat Fink. There's a Rat Fink on a bike, which is a really cool one. And then there were all these derivative Finks. Angel Fink, a witch with a cauldron. Surfink, which was a guy on a surfboard. That kind of thing. The Fink models that I built when I was a kid were actually the first time I really started painting models. Okay, when I built airplanes, built a lot of those. It was just, they're molded in silver to represent, of course, the aluminum of the airplane skin. Very rarely, I don't recall ever really painting those, except for one F-106 I painted once. It's the second time I dropped that. And I didn't paint the whole thing. I just painted the orange on the wingtips because it was used as a target drone, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I never really painted the airplane models, but the Finks is when I self-taught how to paint things. Using the old Testors enamels, because that's what the paints were at the time. And yeah, so I really spent a lot of time working on those. Just like very carefully. I didn't have anything to fill the seams, so these models, which like all models, are relatively poorly done. So the parts didn't fit, and there were gaps where all the seams were. All the seams had gaps. So I didn't have anything to fill them with. So I actually filled them in with the paint. Just put a couple of coats of paint on it until the paint filled the gap. And I think they came out really well. They were the best quality modeling I did when I was young, before I basically stopped building models after high school. Anyway, yeah, I made a Fink as one of the first models, the first model I did on relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons, the first model I did other than the dungeon tile or a minifig. It was a Fink Eliminator, and the character had a big hammer and was smashing cars. There was this poor little dented up, mangled model of a car, and it came with decals. And the hammer said, I like, and you're supposed to put the decal of the brand, Ford, Chevy, Plymouth, whatever. You're supposed to put that on the hammer, and then the car that was getting smushed was supposed to get the decal of the brand that you were smushing, because it wasn't the one that you liked. Anyway, that was actually the first one I did on relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons, other than a dungeon tile or minifig. And I was going to build more of them because I bought all of the reissues, all of them, when they came out again. I think in the 90s, all the Finks were reissued. And I bought them all because I thought, well, I can relive my childhood, or my adolescence anyway, my early adolescence, mid-adolescence, my mid-teens. I could relive that time and have fun producing these Finks, except this time I'll have good paint and I'll have model seam filler and decent brushes, In fact, I accomplished that with the one I did. But the feedback was, whoever is watching these shows doesn't care about Big Daddy Roth Fink models. So I ended up doing the submarine then instead. And that was okay, because the submarine model was really cool. And the submarine model was not a reissue. It was an amalgamation of 3 original models from the 60s that were combined to produce enough parts to generate one model. Okay, it looks like at the pace this is going, that I'm actually going to use up most of the stream getting this taping done. Yeah, I hope it ends up looking okay. Once again, yeah, the part I should have done first, do the hard parts first, get them out of the way. No, let's not do that. Let's do it at the end, when you're tired and cold and sniffling and grumpy. That's the time when you want to do the part that's the hardest to tape. Sorry, I was thinking that there's another way to do this, and I'm going to use the other way. There's just this tiny edge here that needs to be taped. Well, I'll try this. I have this 16th inch wide tape that I was thinking I might use along this edge, but I'm going to try this other than right where the hinges are, which is a tough spot to get to. And be able to do this. Can't really see the edge. Okay, the edge is just really It's very small. Basically the inside of the door. I think if I do it like this and then push the tape down, but not quite. I definitely should have done this first, but I didn't, and so I'm doing it now. As long as the edge is consistent all the way across. That's the important thing. I want a nice, straight, clean line. Anyway, spy shows, so those all came out. I think it is I'll call it a reaction to the James Bond movie phenomenon. And some of them were pretty good, and some of them were just okay. Secret Agent, man, was good. It had a really good theme song. This was pretty good. The Man from Uncle. I don't remember much about The Man from Uncle, other than that Julia and Napoleon were real heartthrobs to the seventh grade girls. That was one of those, fantasy shows about Russian U.S. cooperation. It was kind of like a detente thing. It was like having Chekhov in Star Trek, right? We're getting along with the Russians now. At the time, we definitely weren't. But TV was fantasy, so it was okay to say that we could potentially sometime in the future get along with the Russians, and we would be trying to blow up the world. Although it turned out that neither side really had any plans to blow up the world, it's not. It wasn't something that anybody wanted to do. Which was a good thing, because there wouldn't be any relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons if we'd blown up the world. Perspective, this would not be happening. Some of you might say, well, that's the reason we've got relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons is because we didn't blow the world up in the 60s. Maybe that wasn't the best thing. Especially the way things have been going today. But we didn't, and so here I am. trying my best to very carefully mask these bits here, so that when I spray paint it, the white color, it will look good. To do that, to get a tiny little piece of tape in there somehow, in this gap down here at the bottom of the hinge. Using these tweezers should help, but as I discovered, the tape, it actually adheres to the tweezers better than to anything else. So this doesn't always work either. Oh, the snow. Yeah, I had it in place and then I touched it with a toothpick, right? Push these edges down with the toothpick. This will be like I said, I'm going to end up rechecking all of the tape before I actually spray paint it. And just covering up the hinges, which need to remain gold. And getting the tape in places where I don't want it. So am I missing any of the spy shows from back then? Mission Impossible, Secret Agent, Avengers, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Get Smart. But then that's the point, isn't it? If I can't remember them, then I'm missing them. So the question of whether I'm missing any or not doesn't help by saying I don't remember any others, because that might mean I'm missing one. So some of them were really pretty good. Some of them attracted a lot of attention. Some of them the girls liked. Some of them the boys liked. That sort of thing. Okay, well, there's the inside of the gold. And like I said, I'm not installing those now, because as I'm putting this piece of paper over it, that's the kind of thing where I'd very likely just break something off. So those will get installed late in the game. Got to chunk off and then trim it. I will continue to insist, though, that Secret Agent have the best theme song. Even though it sounded like Secret Asian Man, and it did. It sounded like Secret Asian Man, not Secret Agent Man. But part of that was just the times, people, the lyrics just got slurred. They couldn't always understand the lyrics of songs. But that was a particularly not very useful slur. I mean, not a slur in the sense of a bad thing, like saying bad things about someone, but a slur as in not well pronounced. Really enunciated. Secret Asian Man. Giving you a number and taking away your name. But you won't live to see tomorrow. Yep. And that, like I said, mutated into The Prisoner, where the secret agent actually was given a number 6. Credits kept insisting, I am not a number, I am a free man. Which was nonsense. He wasn't. He was number 6. I am the new number 2. There was always a new number 2. Number 2 was a really high turnover position in the village. I'm not sure one really ever wanted to be a number 2 because it was unusual to last more than at most 2 episodes of the Prisoner as number 2. I do think that actually The Prisoner, number 6, was number 2 once. I don't think he wanted to be number 2. I think it was an election. It was part of the attempt to extract information, because that's what they wanted. What do you want? We want information. What information? I don't know. We never found out. Although they did ask, why did you resign? Some of the information that they wanted is, did he go over to the other side? Was he planning to go to the other side, whatever the other side was, that sort of thing. Anyway, is that a gap in the tape? Or is that just multiple layers of tape? I can't tell. When in doubt, apply more tape. That would be a bad place to have overspray. Secret Agent was a good one, as was the sequel, as it turned out. Okay, well, this looks a little bit ratty, but I think that if I carefully, if I do some careful squeezing of the tape, make sure it adheres to all the little nooks and crannies, that it should end up looking okay after it's spray painted. So this is the 3, those bits need to be done. So let me wrap up here by looking for the box that I use for my tools. Well, I put it out of the way so I wouldn't mess with it. So files and little pieces of wire that I use to clean the opening and the model cement applicator. You got your tweezers. Anyway, there's that. Put that there. I'm going to put this tape in my pocket so that I remember to buy some additional stuff. These, let me put this here. This is just a reminder that I have actually been doing things. This stuff's getting constructed. The interior of the service module has been constructed. It's done. This is holding on. That's a good thing because it was falling out before. So whatever I did there worked. This is where that door that I had to repaint gold goes. It goes across here and opens up that way. This is where the hinges go. Okay, that's the top detail. There's the bottom detail. This piece here goes on here, and it's held in place by friction, where the end of the rocket nozzle fits into this there. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to risk softening or losing the adhesion of the contact cement on that part. But that goes there. So that's kind of finished. This is, for the most part, finished. This little stuff that needs to be done. The outsides of those need to be painted white because that's the color of the outside of the service module. These tanks, there's an oxygen tank, a hydrogen tank, and a helium tank. And those run some very small fuel cells in the inside to run some of the control equipment. And then there's these little rocket nozzles, 16 of the attitude control rocket nozzles that will need to be attached to the 4 points on each of these after they're painted white. That'll be a fiddly bit because not only do they need to go in the right place, but they need to not sag. Okay, so I could end up like putting one on and holding it for 2 minutes, and then putting another one on and holding it for 2 minutes, and just doing that 16 times. These parts, other than the putting the tanks in here, those little tanks into the gold part, if the pearlescent white paint works, if they look okay when they're done, they will just need to be adhered to the outside of the service module. I'll probably use the contact cement for that again. That seems to work really quite well on already painted surfaces. And it gives me a little bit of room to maneuver, and there's actually a chance to clean up after it if there's a little excess, which you can't do with the regular model cement. So painting these, this is going to be, since the edges need to be painted, I might end up like having to hold these and paint the edges and then setting anyway. It's just one of those spray painting challenges that I hope works out okay. Tomorrow when I do spray painting. So I want to thank everybody who joined in today. Really appreciate it. I didn't get as much done today as I wanted because I made a mess of something as I was trying to do some more detail than I needed to do. And it didn't work. And when I tried to fix an infinitesimally small pinpoint flaw, I made a mess of things and had to retape and repaint one of the pieces, which was just a real sad waste of time, I guess, more than anything is what it was. Well, I put it over there. I had a paint palette and wash water out in case I was going to use them, and I ended up not using them. And I was just looking at an empty container going, oh no, I hope that wasn't full of water. But it clearly wasn't, because if it was full of water, there'd be water all over the place, and there isn't. Okay. Oh, I'm becoming incoherent here, as I usually do near the end of the stream. On the next edition of Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons, I hopefully will be I will be unmasking what I hope to be a successful painting of the exterior of the service module components shell in the pearlescent paint. And the same thing with these little guys here. So if these get unmasked and it looks okay, and I don't have to redo them, I just need to add those 3 tanks to the inside of this, and these are ready to install. And I might, maybe if everything goes well, I might be able to actually do that on Friday. And then what will be left is attaching 16 rice grain sized rocket nozzles, 4 each on each of these brackets. And once those are done, then attaching those to the outside of the service module where they go. You can see them here all around. What's important is that, they go on these little pins, but that they don't sag. And that means holding them in place long enough for whatever adhesive I use to set up and hold it and not fall. And then, since this will be almost done, probably finish next week. I doubt that I'll finish it on Friday, because things always take longer than I'd like them to. I'm going to find the astronaut guys. There's 2 standing up walking on the moon astronauts, and 3 sitting inside the command module astronauts. Right? And I like these guys. They come in halves, and I looked at them, and they're really badly formed. They're really badly formed. There's flashing. The seams don't match up. Okay. So I can spend a good deal of time sanding and filing, putting them together, cementing them together, and then making the seams go away. But I think it'd be kind of fun to do the astronauts next. I wonder what G is. G is light blue. Okay. Well, I'm going to be brushing light blue on this. I'm going to be spray painting them white, because the suits are almost all completely white. And then the face and some of the detail. Sean. The astronaut's face show inside, but on the ones that are on the moon, the faceplate of the helmet is painted gold. Anyway, it'll be like doing minifigs, actually. So it'll be kind of fun to do those. There's like 5 astronaut figures, and it will be kind of like constructing, smoothing out, and then painting minifigs. If I were a really good master modeler, I would somehow or other simulate the accumulation of lunar dust on their boots by like spray painting gray on it, just from a distance. Oof, just a little bit. It's almost tempting to try that. I'm almost tempted to try to do that, to see if I could get it to work. And if it didn't, I'd just paint them over again. Yeah. So this bit, hopefully I'll make some progress again on Friday, as long as nothing really bad happens. Get the astronauts out, and I'm going to get and work on the base, the thing into which the lunar module sits. Okay. These are really large pieces. They will require a lot of spray paint and a lot of taping. They make up this part of it. And it's almost twice as tall as the service module when you see it all put together. And then after that, I'll be working on the lunar excursion module, and the final bit will be the command module. So that's it. That's the Wednesday edition of Relaxing Painting, Apollo working Dice and Dungeons. And yeah, I might change my mind changed to what we're painting. I'm not sure if I'll be taping anything on Friday. It'd be kind of a relief to not be putting more tape on things. So yeah, I've got a spray painting challenge here. I'll do this tomorrow, and then on Friday, I will get really close. I think really close to being finished with the service module, and that means that 2 of the 4, not counting, 2 of the 5, really, if you count the container, the base container for the lunar module, will be done. Thanks again, and I will see you all at about 10 o'clock on Friday. Have a good day. Can't reach the end stream button. There it is.